Today we will be installing the Trem-Band Brass Tremolo blocker. By the end of this video you'll have learned 2 different ways to install the Trem-Band, tips and tricks to make it easy and set up for optimal performance. It's always best to begin with a perfectly set up, in-tune guitar. Make sure the tremolo is level with the guitar body. The tremolo looks level. We can begin. So now flip the guitar over. Make sure not to put any pressure on the tremolo arm or fine tuners. A rolled up towel or pad behind the tremolo will work fine. Measure the gap between the tremolo block and the guitar body using the provided measuring tool. If the gap falls within the red space, install the small domed brass block. Yellow, use the medium block, and blue, large. Here the gap falls within the yellow space, so medium block. Now measure the depth of the tremolo. Write it down so you'll know where to place the Trem-Band later. For optimal performance, the top of the Trem-Band block should be 1 to 3 mm below the lip of the guitar body. Now that both measurements have been taken, you can flip the guitar over without the support of the rolled up towel or pad. Putting pressure on the tremolo will actually make it easier to remove the springs. Now remove the springs from the back of the guitar. Using needle nose pliers will make this job easier. Carefully flip the guitar over. Make sure to hold the tremolo in place with one hand to avoid the risk of it falling out. Then pull the tremolo out of the front of the guitar with strings still attached. Loosen the compression fitting screws on the Trem-Band to provide adequate space for the tremolo block to slip into. Slide the Trem-Band onto the tremolo block to the predetermined depth measured earlier. Tighten the compression fitting screws so the Trem-Band can't be moved up or down the block with finger pressure. Next, install the proper block. To change Trem-Band blocks, it's easiest when the Trem-Band is attached to the tremolo, outside of the guitar of course. Fully unscrew the bottom 2 screws only as shown here. Now remove the small brass block and replace it with the medium block from the measurement taken earlier. Be sure not to fully tighten these screws as adjustments will still need to be made. Before installing the tremolo back into the guitar, make sure the wedge is flush with the band. And the wedge and block are at their smallest. Now reinstall the tremolo back into the guitar. Again, while holding the tremolo with one hand, carefully flip the guitar over and reattach the springs. While pulling up on the tremolo, check to see if the Trem-Band is at the proper height inside the tremolo cavity. This looks great. If your guitar body doesn't have a routed cavity underneath the tremolo, like shown here, but is still floating, meaning you can pull up on the tremolo, it might be difficult to reinstall it with the Trem-Band attached. If so, here is an alternate way of installing the Trem-Band. Just like earlier, flip the guitar over and rest the body on a rolled up towel. Make sure not to put any pressure on the tremolo. Next, take the block measurement. Here the gap falls within the red space, so install the small block. Now, using the rolled up towel to support the tremolo, you can safely remove the springs. Again, before installing, make sure the tremolo blocker is at its smallest. Now use one hand to slide it onto the tremolo and hold it in place. With the other hand, tighten the compression fitting screws with just enough pressure to be able to reposition it. Once it's in the desired position, fully tighten the compression fitting screws and push down to make sure the tremolo blocker is stable. Pull back on the tremolo to push the block and wedge back together. If the trem band falls into the tremolo cavity, or its position too low, slightly loosen the compression fitting screws, and use the 2 wrenches provided to pull the trem band up. For added strength, the small block does not have a cutout for the wrench. To adjust, insert the wrench on either side of the block and push forward to give access to the adjustment screw in the wedge. Now reinstall the springs and continue with the setup. The gap as shown in red here will have to be closed. Tighten the set screw in the wedge to increase the amount of space the tremolo blocker will fill. Stop tightening the set screw once the brass block makes contact with the wood inside the tremolo cavity. Then unclamp the lock nut and tune the guitar. Next, check to see if the tremolo is level with the guitar body. If it's not, and this is very important, when leveling the tremolo with the guitar body, always depress the tremolo with one hand while adjusting the set screw in the wedge with the other. This will relieve pressure on the trem band and avoid damage to your tremolo blocker. When loosening the set screw, pushing down on the wrench and or pulling back on the tremolo arm should push the wedge and block back together. If it doesn't, and there is a gap like pictured here, use one of the provided wrenches to push it forward. If that doesn't work, the wedge is overextended and the block should be changed to a larger size. Now the guitar is in tune and the tremolo is level. The Trem-Band brass tremolo blocker works best and achieves the best vibrational transference when the right amount of tension is applied, as described in the next section. For optimal performance and to perform unison and double stop bends without detuning other strings, adjust spring tension just tight enough to keep the tremolo stable, meaning the heaviest string stays in tune while pulling down on other strings. For this example we are in standard tuning. While using a guitar tuner, pluck the open low E string and pull down on the A string. If the low E string goes flat, the tremolo is unstable and moving. Flip the guitar over and tighten both Trem Claw screws 1 to 2 turns each. Now pluck the open low E string and pull down on the A string again. The tremolo is now stable. If the tremolo is still unstable, continue to tighten the Trem Claw screws in increments of 1 to 2 turns and test for stability after each tightening. Do not continue to tighten the Trem Claw screws once the tremolo is stable. Doing so could damage the trem band. Now that there is tension on the tremolo blocker, it's normal to be leaning back ever so slightly. If it is, tighten the set screw in the wedge while depressing the tremolo, just like covered earlier. Then tune the guitar and reclamp the lock nut. And finally, pull the bridge and or trem band out of the guitar one last time and tighten these 4 screws. This is only a precautionary measure. Screws left slightly loose 1 or 2 turns for adjustment will still be stable due to pressure. Once the trem band is installed and has been set up properly, no further setup should ever be necessary.